What's going on? It's the Suits and Laterals show. I'm Mitch Gatsky. He's Evan Skilleter. It's good to be with you guys again. Evan, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing really well. It sounds like we
Really well.
have sounds like we have your mic figured out.
Yeah.
Sorry about last week's debacle with the microphones, but I think we
No, you
finally
don't
have.
need to apologize. That's totally on me because I got a real bad habit of not checking the settings before we come on. So that's totally on me. I didn't flip a setting to the right mic, and yeah, that's what happens. So
Well,
my
I
apologies.
was talking to the listeners, but whatever.
Well, no, I'm saying you don't need to apologize to them. That's on me. I apologize.
I just apologize as a member of this show and an appreciative host. But
I didn't want you to take a bad rap for something I did.
yeah, I appreciate it. So what's up with you? What are you up to?
I'm just hanging, man.
How's the weather in Michigan?
The weather's all right. I love fall. I just love fall. So when I walk outside and it's like I got long sleeves on and there's just a little chill in the air in the morning. It just
Squirrels
feels
are starting to get fatter.
yeah, the air feels more fresh when you breathe it in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's
Well, before we start the show, I just want to let everyone know that I had some really nice notes ready to go for the show, and I left them in the bathroom at work.
Oh
So
man.
I'm gonna do my best to recall what I wrote down, and I think I've retained most of it. But the cleaning man who cleans over the weekends probably gonna go home to his friends and tell him how knowledgeable he is on some of these NFL topics. So congratulations to that guy.
Yeah, he's the big winner today, but hopefully we can still do a good show. Let's start off with the big game from Monday night. The Seahawks survived an early flurry from the Buffalo Bills. They come back and beat them 31-25. And obviously, the thing that everybody's talking about is the sequence of plays that went down right before halftime. What do you make of all the craziness?
Do you mean the field goal?
The whole field goal
Yeah.
situation.
Well,
We can break it down quickly. Richard Sherman jumped off sides, continued to go for the blocked the kick, and no flag was called for roughing the kicker or anything. If you haven't seen the play, I'd suggest you check it out. Um, I will link to his press conference, and he kind of describes his thought process for the whole thing. And when you listen to him, first of all, he's a very well-spoken person, and he articulates his point quite well. And I'm totally on board with him. I didn't have a problem with the play when it happened, and I definitely don't have a problem now that I've heard his explanation.
yeah, I think we agree on that one. Sherman jumped offside, but after looking at the play a couple times, it's clear that the referees did not blow the whistle. And Dan Carpenter, the kicker from the Bills, went to kick the ball, and Sherman clearly got his hand to the ball before it was kicked, and he did run into the kicker, which sucks. But the whistle wasn't blown until after he ran into the kicker, so there's no penalty. I mean, you have to play to the whistle.
Yeah.
And Sherman said this in his press conference, but if it's a defensive play and the defensive end jumps offside, the quarterback can still drop back and throw a long pass, and the play counts.
Yeah.
So you have to play until you hear a whistle, until those refs blow it dead. There's not much to talk about here. The NFL came out and fined Sherman $9,000 for doing what he did.
$9,115.
Sure.
Precisely.
I think that's bogus. I don't know how or why they did that, but I'm with Sherman on it.
Yeah, I totally am too. Also, so after that happened, it's a 5-yard offside call. And so Carpenter, the kicker, has got to come out for a play because he was injured and they had to attend to him. He's got to come out for a play. The Bills go to spike the ball, and they do that so that they can get the kicker back out onto the field. That, as it turns out, should have been called intentional grounding, according to NFL rules. That call was missed. Then, as the refs try to spot the ball again, They stand over it as the play clock drains down. The Bills don't get it off in time. 5-yard penalty. They finally kick this field goal, and Carpenter misses. Now, the officiating crew was not penalized at all for its poor performance in that particular instance. Ev, do you think the NFL should fine and, I guess, discipline NFL officials after performances like that where it's clear that they messed up?
So that's a tricky subject because you don't want to set a precedent that you don't want to follow, right? So if you start penalizing referees for messing up, then do you have to do it every time they miss a call? Is there going to be a limit on how many calls you can miss? You know, a performance index of sorts. In this particular case, when you clearly blow 3 calls, 4 calls in a row, there should probably be some kind of discipline. I mean, the NFL, I forget what his position is, but there was an NFL that works for corporate office that had to tweet during the game about the missed call to kind of play damage control. When it has to go that far, then you should probably discipline the referee. So, like I said, you have to be careful. Maybe put in some kind of or draw some sort of line. You know, if you miss 10 calls or 5 calls or this type of call or that type of call, there can be penalties, but you can't just do it objectively because then you're going to be in trouble.
I just find it very interesting that it's gotten to a point where we're not only watching the two teams play against each other, we're watching and paying attention to and evaluating the performance of the referees. And everybody loves to say, oh, the refs got it out for my team. That's a big thing here in Detroit. Oh, the Lions never get any calls. It's like, well, no, clearly the NFL is not laying a precedent that they don't want officials calling anything close the Lions' way. That's not what's happening.
Right.
But it got to a point where Fox has this Mike Pereira guy who's a former official, and if anything questionable happens during a broadcast, they bring him in and he gives an opinion on the replay, the review, you know, what's going on with the official, all this. It's become a part of the game. And I just find that very interesting of, you know, the presentation of the product has changed so drastically in just the past 5 years.
Yeah, there's a lot less room for human error as far as referees are concerned now, and I think we are headed to a place where a lot of the game is almost refereed by cameras and by guys behind monitors. You know, we see it with baseball every now and then. You know, Joe Madden even said during the World Series that baseball's probably headed to a spot where balls and strikes will start to be called automatically or digitally, excuse me. So it's an interesting path that we're taking. You know, there's obviously two sides to the argument. You know, I like the human error element because, you know, it's tough to see everything. And, you know, they always say you can call holding on every play. And I think you could almost call pass interference on almost every deep ball that's thrown. So
the way the rule's written now, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So it's very objective at the moment, and I'm interested to see where it goes from there.
Did you see the shot? If you watched the Richard Sherman press conference, did you see the shot at the very beginning, the very first question he was asked? Did you see what he said?
Go ahead.
He was asked if he was surprised the way his block kick and the controversy and everything turned into a national conversation. And he said, no, not really. I mean, this is the league. They need something to talk about. They need something to make themselves more relevant.
Well, see, Richard Sherman's the same guy that came out and said the league's not fun anymore, and that's why ratings are down. And he probably has a point.
He does have a point.
And the NFL is definitely digging for something to attract fans, but I don't think that referee gaffes are going to do it.
No, definitely not. But I love how Sherman has taken this whole no fun league, and I obviously he didn't mean to cause this sort of a stir up. He didn't plan to just run into the kicker, I don't think, and cause all of this, but he is playing the bad guy right now, and I'm loving it with the comments, and he's taking shots at the NFL while playing very well. He got a pick in the game on Monday night and stared down Rex Ryan. Like, it's just it's fun to see him making fun of the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's Sherman's a communication major from Stanford, and that's no slouch of a school if you didn't know. So
No.
he knows what he's doing. A lot of this stuff is calculated, and I almost think the NFL likes it. I think the NFL needs it, and the same almost goes for Antonio Brown's cleats. Like
Right.
they still have to find him, but I would guess the NFL is almost hoping that he comes out with different cleats every week because they need something for people to start watching.
And it seems like every once in a while you get that character that wants to play the bad guy role. I mean, we had Ocho Cinco and T.O. before him. And obviously that list goes on, and guys take it to different levels. But I'm just loving what Richard Sherman is doing right now. As far as the game is actually concerned, what do you think about Russell Wilson? I mean, he finally looked like he was himself again. He was more mobile. He took off a couple of times. What'd you think?
Yeah. So it was definitely an impressive offensive performance for the Seahawks. Jimmy Graham came out of his shell, scored 100 or caught for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns.
100 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was a pretty good game. Doug Baldwin, 89 yards receiving. But the one thing that's kind of concerning is the lack of a running game for Seattle. The most successful teams in the NFL are pretty good at balancing the pass and the run. And there were no players over 13 yards rushing for Seattle. And the guy that rushed for 13 yards was Tyler Lockett, and he's a receiver. So good offensive performance. It's a lot, or it's definitely what Russell Wilson needed. 20 for 26, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. The Bills' defense is pretty good, if you didn't know. So
they are.
Yeah, impressive for Russ. The other thing that is kind of startling is that Seattle's defense, at least in the first half, looked absolutely atrocious.
Yeah. No, it took them a while to warm up. And part of that was the Bills' first possession, the Seahawks' first possession, the Bills blocked a punt, and the Bills ended up with it on the 3, and they punched it in first play. So, I mean, that kind of sends you reeling as a defense, and you're trying to play catch-up, and that can be tough. But, yeah, it did take them a while to warm up.
Yeah, so I still like the Bills. I still think the Bills will do some good things moving forward. But the Seahawks, they're going to be interesting because you can't be one-dimensional in the NFL. And I'm a little bit concerned that the one-dimensionalness from the Seahawks won't bode well in the NFC West.
Let's flip to the AFC West, where the Raiders have taken control. They beat the Broncos 30-20 on the Sunday night game. First of all, is this the best division in football right now?
It almost has to be.
Right? Doesn't it?
You could make a case for the NFC East, but top to bottom, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. You're right. It's a very good division. Even the Chargers.
Yeah,
the Chargers are playing pretty well. So, I would definitely have to say they have the best case. And
it's interesting how things have changed again, because you look back just a couple of years ago, the Chargers were not very good. And the Chiefs kind of flirt with being good. They're a typical 7-9 to 9-7 team. And the Raiders haven't been good in forever. It's really been the Broncos on top of that division. So to see the Raiders rise to power, the Chiefs look like they're in the middle of one of their better seasons, and the Chargers, I mean, they're at 4-5. Phillip Rivers, you can't count the Chargers out of any game with Phillip Rivers. He's one of the most slept on quarterbacks. I'll get to one that's even more slept on later in the show. But Phillip Rivers is money. I got to say that's the best division in football right now. But this game in particular was an interesting clash of styles. What did you see?
Well, the Raiders, I'll get to the Raiders in a second. The Broncos are still playing that simplistic short pass type offense, and that's going to work for them against a lot of teams. Unfortunately, the Raiders have the most balanced and probably the best all-around offense in the NFL. And a lot of people are going to say, wait. Atlanta's putting up way more yards, and there are plenty of other good offenses. But the Raiders are actually the only team in the NFL that are top 5 in rushing and passing yards. And that's really an outstanding stat considering Latavius Murray has been dinged up, and he came out and he rushed for 114 yards on 20 carries, for 3 touchdowns. And even Jalen Richard had 62 yards on 8 carries. So both of those guys with over 7 yards per carry, which is outstanding. And Derek Carr didn't have to do a ton. He completed 20 of 31 passes for 184 yards, but it was Murray that really punched the ball into the end zone. So they're a tough team, a tough offense to stop.
I just liked the way that we saw the old guard versus the new, 2 young quarterbacks making names for themselves in totally different ways. I mean, Derek Carr goes out and he actually wins the game for you, as he did in Tampa Bay a couple of weeks ago. Trevor Siemian, on the other hand, he's playing the perfect game manager right now. And you touched on it a little bit to open up your points about the Broncos playing that short passing style, controlling the game, letting the defense go win it. That's what Trevor Siemian is very good at right now. He's a young quarterback who's just kind of learning, and that's the perfect style to grow up in. They don't need him to go out and do anything more than that. I'm really looking forward to the rematch. It's on New Year's Day, Evan. We have football. We have NFL football on Christmas and New Year's Day this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice rematch, but it's really, really tough to play in Denver if you're not a Denver Bronco. So you're looking at the Raiders' remaining schedule. I think they're going to win 11 or 12 total games, but I'm worried about that Denver rematch and also worried about the Chiefs. Don't forget, the Chiefs beat the Raiders in Oakland. I believe it was 26-3 or 26-10. 26-10. So, that division, like you said, is very good. They're beating up on each other. But I do think with that Raiders offense, they're gonna end up on top of the division. And I think that the Raiders might have the best shot of making the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
Interesting. We can get into that next week. I'd love to hear why you think that, but next week.
Okay. We'll wait till next week. I'll have another game to evaluate. No, I won't. Yeah. They have a bye this week. Anyway, go on.
Switching to another division that's beating up on itself. The AFC North. So the Ravens hang on to defeat the Steelers. It was 21-14. And that brings the Ravens and the Steelers to 4-4, and the Ravens lead with a 2-0 division record. It's the only division with a 500 team leading the way. What can we make of the AFC North?
Well, don't forget Roethlisberger was hurt 2 games ago, and still not comfortable.
Sure.
Last week against the Ravens. So
sure, we don't need to hear
if you have a well, you asked me what to make of the AFC North, and I'm telling you, once Roethlisberger gets healthy, if he gets healthy, I think the Steelers will end up running away with the division. And I think the Browns might even win tonight. We're recording on Thursday before Thursday Night Football, so yes. The Browns have to win a game this year. I'm confident that they'll win one, and it's always
they have to.
They always play well against AFC North teams. So I think if there's a good night for it, it's tonight in prime time. Show the world what's up, Browns. Anyway,
Timeout. The world is not watching the Thursday night game.
what are they watching tonight? Election coverage.
I don't know. They might, they might just be watching Netflix. It's that weird time where baseball's over, hockey and basketball just got started. They play long seasons. It doesn't really matter. They might just be, college basketball hasn't started yet. They might just be on Netflix tonight.
What's your favorite Netflix show at the minute?
Well, I have to be honest. I just finished the 5th season of New Girl last night, and I'm kind of looking for a new show. So suggestions are welcome.
Oh gosh. Okay.
New Girl is a great show, man. I'm telling you.
You like Jess?
Jess is cool. She's funny.
She is awesome, and she's a babe. And my wife knows that I think that. So I'm with you. So
to close the show.
You asked me about the AFC North. Why don't you give me your opinion?
I think, like you say, it hinges on Ben's health. We keep talking about this. If he can stay healthy, it's theirs to lose, I guess. But at this point, I like the Ravens. I mean, Mike Williams' stiff arm on the 95-yard touchdown reception was awesome, by the way. And that's got to feel good coming against your old team. But just, I don't know, something about Joe Flacco
Mike Wallace
being the guy that he is. Did I say Williams? I'm sorry.
That's cool. I just want to make sure everyone knew who you were talking about.
I meant Wallace. That's why you're here, to cover for my mistakes, and you don't need to apologize for them.
It's the only reason I'm here.
Among other reasons.
The only reason among other reasons I'm here. So, Mitchell.
I've got one last thing.
And I hope it has to do with the NFC North.
It does, particularly the best quarterback in it.
Oh, we're talking Aaron Rodgers.
Wrong, sir. We're talking Matt Stafford, because he did it again. He did it again in Minnesota. The Vikings scored to take a 3-point lead with just 23 seconds left. The Lions got the ball. Stafford threw it to Tate for 8 yards, and then Andre Roberts for 27 yards. Roberts, coming into the game, had 5 catches for 49 yards, and that was his only catch of the day. It was huge. I went nuts. Matt Prater drilled a 58-yarder as time expired to tie it. He's underrated as well. I mean, that guy, I believe he holds the record for longest field goal ever kicked in the NFL. Anyway, goes to OT. Stafford leads an 11-play, 87-yard game-winning drive. He was 5 of 6 for 73 yards in the game-winning touchdown, which Golden Tate topped off with a cool little twist flip thing into the end zone.
That was the dumbest thing. Yeah, dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Really?
Well, yeah, he got hit and could have ruined the game for him. Like,
well, no, what
are you doing?
I think he knew
making a fancy dive. And he made a fancy dive into the end zone anyway?
Yeah, I think he meant to kick him.
That's okay. That's stupid, but okay.
That's the kind of player Golden Tate is. He's just kind of out there and he does his own thing. Anyway.
He's the kind of player Detroit fans love having on their team.
Sure. You either love him or you hate him. And yeah, he's one of those players. He's a polarizing player. But the Lions have trailed in the fourth quarter in each of their 9 games this season. That means Matt Stafford has led game-winning drives in all 5 of the Lions' wins this season. They were down 35-34 with 37 seconds to go against the Colts in week 1. They were down 23-21 with 6:40 to go against the Eagles in week 5. They were down 28-21 with 14:09 to go against the Rams in week 6. They were down 17-13 with 1:05 to go against the Redskin Potatoes in week 7. And then down 16-13 with 23 seconds to go against the Vikings last week with no timeouts, by the way. He led that drive to tie it and the overtime drive to win it. I don't get into the win probability stuff. It's mostly nonsense, but down a field goal with 23 seconds left without timeouts, you're not supposed to win. Oh,
Excuse me.
wow. A yawn?
Excuse me. Well, it was actually a real yawn, but I think it was actually because I was bored from
Awesome.
listening to this. So
Awesome.
Stafford can only be underrated for so long before he's rated, right? So for the last 3 or 4 weeks, people are finally starting to take notice of Matt Stafford. And I'm not sure when, and you might, and I'm not saying this has never happened, but I'm not sure I've ever been around or noticed a time where people thought Matt Stafford wasn't a good quarterback.
Oh,
I just think Matt Stafford's never been on a good enough team to be considered a good quarterback or to get the recognition as a good quarterback. But I can't remember a time where anyone's ever been like, oh man, that Matt Stafford, he is terrible and needs to go. Am I wrong?
you are off base. I mean, maybe nationally that's the feeling, but here in Detroit, they are a lot of people, a lot of Lions fans I know are still hating on Stafford. They're still stuck in the past. They wrote him off at some point in the last 8 years and probably won't give him credit. Even if he does win a Super Bowl, they'll just say, oh, great, bet he can't do it again. And I think the problem is they don't watch other games. They don't see the lack of quality quarterbacks in the league right now. Evan, I want you to name me the top 5 QBs in the league that come to your head right now.
Okay, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, and Stafford's in there for me, by the way. So
Okay.
That's 3. Ryan, Brady, Stafford. Tough to say Rodgers at this point. I would put Derek Carr up there.
Okay. But that's my point right there. It's Brady and it's everybody else. And right now, Matt Stafford is at the top of everybody else. He's got.
No. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Third. Look.
Go on.
Okay. Since week 10 last year, after the bye, when Jim Bob Cooter took over as offensive coordinator, Matt Stafford has a 37-7 touchdown to interception ratio. That's best in the league. And Russell Wilson's the only one that's anywhere close.
Okay. What else?
I'm just saying, show me all the QBs who can get the job done like Matt Stafford, and I'll say, hey, Mr. Brady, how are you? And that's it.
Matt Ryan.
I don't know.
What about Matt Ryan? I mean, Matt Ryan, and this isn't an argument to or my point in this argument is not to say that Matt Stafford isn't a good quarterback.
Sure, go ahead.
But Matt Ryan has been absolutely fantastic. He leads the league right now in yards and touchdowns. He's thrown 4 interceptions, which I think Stafford is at 5 this season so far. And the guy's team is incredible too. I mean, they're 6-3 right now. They beat the Packers. They beat the Raiders in Oakland. They beat the Panthers and the Broncos. I mean, this is a really good team. But Matt Ryan's getting the job done. I mean, he's thrown for almost 3,000 yards, and his 23 touchdowns are just incredible halfway through the season.
Sure it is. And sure, he's getting the job done. But you said it right there. The team is good. Matt Stafford's doing it with nobody. I mean, Theo Riddick just came back. He was out for a bunch of weeks. He came back 2 weeks ago, was out for a bunch of weeks. They've had no running game with inconsistency, guys going in and out. The offensive line has been rotating all season. Calvin Johnson, everybody wants to talk about how Matt Stafford was made by Calvin Johnson because he could just chuck it up to him. I think Calvin Johnson not being on the team now has actually helped Stafford become a better quarterback. He's spreading the ball around to different guys. He's doing it by himself. The defense is atrocious. The defense hardly gives him a chance, and he's still going out and winning games. So, yeah, Matt Ryan is getting the job done, but Matt Stafford is doing it by himself, and that's why I put him number 2 right now behind Brady.
Stafford is great, but he also has Golden Tate and Marvin Jones to throw to. Those are 2. No, please. Those 2 are great.
And Anquan Bolden, by the way.
And yeah, exactly. There you go. You just said it yourself. You named a third receiver that was formidable.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Right.
he still
Formidable,
has
all
weapons.
guys.
And
Sure,
so
all weapons, but they're all on the downswing of their careers. It's not like this is Anquan Bolden that was playing in the Super Bowl 3 years ago.
well, until there is some kind of stat that takes into consideration how good the weapons are around you, there's no way for you to be able to convince me that Matt Ryan is not as good or playing as well as Matt Stafford.
Do they make a wins above replacement stat in football?
I'm sure that we could find that out.
Somebody's got to be doing it, and I bet you that Matt Stafford is on the top of that list this year. Player of the week, who do you got?
Ooh, I'd have to go Latavius Murray.
Damn, you took mine, man.
Oops, sorry.
20 carries, good for 114, 3 touchdowns when his team needed it the most, by the way. They were playing a Broncos team that has a top 5 pass defense. That means they had to run the ball. He ripped off some long runs that generated some momentum, kept drives moving, and really helped Derek Carr out. Latavius Murray, our first unanimous player of the week.
Yeah, that's great. And, you said it. He had a couple long carries. 20 carries for 114 yards is good for over 7 yards per carry, which is incredible. If you can get a guy to do that consistently, you are in really, really good shape.
That's going to do it for us here on the Suits and Laterals podcast program. I'm Mitch Gatsky. Find me on Twitter at Great Gatsky. He's Evan Skilleter. Find him on Twitter at Evan Skilleter now, not just Skilleter. Add the first name. Don't forget it. And yeah, I mean, listen to us. Tell your friends about us. Subscribe. Find us everywhere.
Review. Don't forget to review.
Don't forget to review. Send us emails. hello@suitsandlaterals.com. I think that's going to do it, right?
It's got to be it. Man, there's a lot of NFL football this weekend. I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to getting back on the air next week.
One more thing. Support your local businesses. Tip handsomely. And say please and thank you.
Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay right and stay real.